back to the Tailosive EV podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, after a very long hiatus, the universe is against us. There have been so many obstacles between tech issues, life issues, health issues. Pretty sure some bombs have gone off. But
FSD interventions.
Yeah. There's been some Elon time involved, but we're back. If you're listening to this, it means that the podcast worked. The recording did not fail. And it's just Model Y Mike and Model 3 Drew back at it again. And
how dare you reference yourself as Model 3 Drew?
Hey, this is, I hate to break it to you, but this is the Model 3 show, okay? Because this is our first EV episode post Highland. They had to drop the biggest Model 3 update ever in the middle of our hiatus. And there's so much new stuff, and I have literally spoken to you about this zero. I have no idea of your thoughts or impressions, your perspectives on the new Model 3, which is crazy because you're like my biggest EV friend that I...
That is true in some respects. I somehow got on this podcast through an EV, so...
That's right.
Sense. What is hilarious is when this news dropped, I went to the Ford Rouge facility that day in Dearborn, Michigan.
Oh, yeah, you were touring, huh?
I got to see cars being made. I think they make 65, what's it called? 65 F-150s an hour. So that's a little bit more than one a minute that they produce. And that very same day or evening, Highland got announced. So I was like, oh, cool. I have a little bit more perspective on car manufacturing or truck manufacturing. And now we get this news that the Model 3 is finally getting its revision, that it's long awaited. It's big, I guess, refresh per se. I will not be calling it Highland,
Seriously.
by the way.
What?
As you can
What do you call
tell,
it?
and I just call it the refresh. In previous podcasts that we've talked about this Highland Model 3, not even Tesla calls it the Highland Model 3 officially. They just call it the new Model 3, the refresh Model 3, as far as I can tell. In which that's what it is. It's not any special edition Model 3. It's not the performance Model 3. It's not the long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3.
Performance.
No, there's not even that. It is just the new Model 3 to me, and that's what it is. It's not any weird code name, kind of like how Project Juniper is for Model Y. At the end of the day, it's still Model Y. Like, it's just a refresh in my eyes. But it is exciting. I will admit that.
Yeah. I will go as far as to say this is the biggest vehicle refresh in Tesla's history. You could argue with me on it.
Really? I would say the Model S and X were that. And or maybe the Roadster, but the Roadster never really made it so far.
Yeah, what Roadster?
2.0 Roadster still hasn't come out. But
yeah,
at least with the S and X, that was a big refresh in regards to what they came from and what they are right now.
It was a big refresh, you're right, the Project Palladium or whatever, but that was still on their higher-end vehicles. And I would argue this is bigger because it's on a mass market vehicle. It's not just their high-end luxury segment. This is for many markets, their cheapest model. This is like a huge update coming to an entry-level model, and I would even argue there's more differences between the pre-refresh and the refresh than there is between the old S and X and the new S and X. Right. There were a lot of changes. They were both still big, but I would argue simply because of the affordability and the market segment being much bigger, this is a bigger deal. And it probably won't even be as big a deal when the Model Y gets refreshed, because then it won't be new things. It'll just be keeping it up with the 3. It'll be like, oh, well, it should have all those things, I guess.
Model Y always following Model 3. That's just what it is.
Big brother.
Model Y was always an improvement on the Model 3 because it improves on what the Model 3 started with. The Model 3 started as a sedan. Model Y became an SUV. It added more space as a hatch versus the Model 3. The Model 3 still doesn't even have a hatch. But what the Model 3 has now that basically makes the Model Y the sore thumb in the whole lineup of Tesla vehicles that you can buy today, or I guess you still can't even buy the refreshed Model 3 today, but probably in the next year, and also including Cybertruck in this as well, is that Model Y is probably going to be the only vehicle that doesn't have ventilated seats.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
Which is the one thing that really excited me and my wife when we decided to watch the review by, was it Car Wow or something like that night?
Right.
We're like, oh, wow. They put ventilated seats on the cheapest Tesla. That's...
That was a big relief.
Well, at first we're like, what is this going to cost then? And then also, I guess, what else is there that they're not telling us in terms of improvements of the Model 3 besides just blatant, it's 25% more efficient or whatever.
That would be cool, yeah. It was more like 8, I think.
I forget. But, it's been a while since I looked at the numbers. But the one
there's
big
like
feature...
slightly more aero. There's no more separation between the fog lamps and the headlights. What do you think of the look? Do you think it looks better?
It looks okay. I'm still a big fan of the original look of the Model 3.
That's the correct answer. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. But I would say that it's a facelift that it probably needed. It's a facelift that it deserved, but not necessarily what it needs. If it means that
so
it
deserves to look uglier.
It deserves some update exterior-wise because it's been basically the one that has been unchanged exterior-wise throughout its whole time in production. Very minor different changes with like the trim and all that, or the matrix headlights and all that. But yeah, I would say it's okay. I'm not a big fan of the interior of the refresh Model 3.
Interesting. Is it the gear stocks? Are you a gear stock guy?
The gear stocks are nice, and from someone who has been road tripping around the United States, I like my one gear stock that I have in my truck. It's only one. You don't need to have two. You can just have one, and it works perfectly fine. But having none is a little bit interesting, especially with the fact that like you now have the buttons on the steering wheel, so now you're dealing with like kind of the same Model S and X problems that they've been dealing with their wheels.
Same thing.
It used to be yokes. Now they are pricing the yoke out, so it becomes a giant luxury item. So you have to get the wheel first, which I was never against that with the S and X. I think the yoke was perfectly fine on them. It's just the Cybertruck, it doesn't make sense. But neither here nor there. At least with this Model 3, no stocks, kind of bold choice for a mass market car that has a low entry price for the common people, or people who save up enough to get it, I should say, because it's not like Toyota Corolla levels of. I'm dancing around the fact that
if you factor in 6-year savings, it's actually cheaper than a blah, 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 blah.
I guess what I'm dancing around is
don't factor in registration, tires, charging, any of that.
The only thing that got me excited about this car is the ventilated seats, as I mentioned before. Otherwise, everything else I'm not as interested in.
You weren't that impressed?
The screen for like the rear occupants, that's great for like turning on and off like your heated seats, but that could have just been a button.
Oh yeah.
Or something like that. Not even like a physical button. It could have just been a capacitive button right there, and that's it. It doesn't need to be anything else. You don't have to put entertainment back there. It's a low cost entry to whatever Tesla you want in the lineup. It doesn't need to have that unless you say Model 2 or something else. But yeah, adding additional speakers, cool, I guess, but whatever.
It's not like, I get what you mean, because the existing Model 3 sound system is not bad by any means.
No,
so having more is cool, but not, in my opinion, necessary or not a reason to get the refresh.
I think what really perturbs me greatly with it is they added the blind spot assist LEDs, kind of like
in the
speaker. on the sides.
Right.
In which, when I heard that it was supposed to get blind spot awareness or whatever, and when we saw this giant LED strip, I was thinking, oh, they're just going to illuminate that part of the door that has the LED for when there's someone in your blind spot. Like, that makes total sense. Too. No. They put a little LED inside the speaker to just light up when there's someone in your blind spot, which is very not Tesla, in my opinion, for, like, how they want to remove as much as they can, make it as clean as possible in there.
It's surprisingly standard. Like, that's what most other car companies would have done, too.
Mm-hmm. So that's something...
And it surprised me, because that's like the first time Tesla's, in a long time, Tesla's actually started adding things that benefit a driver.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, Tesla's all about, well, autonomy next week, so we don't need to have driver features. We just need to make it cheap, simple, and maybe passenger features, but not driver features. Whereas those indicator lights are strictly just for the driver. They're not... If it's a robotaxi, those are pointless.
Oh, yeah. You don't need those. So, in which it seems like they're pivoting away from that as the Model 3, Model S, Model X, and Model Y being the robo-taxis that you already own and have a wheel. It's more of, we're going to make a separate product line that is dedicated to being a robo-taxi. And those will basically just be what Zoox is, toaster boxes in some sorts, but sleek.
Everyone get in the toaster.
It's a really cool design, but in my opinion. But otherwise, yeah, it seems like a step back in a lot of different ways. Like, cool, they added an LED strip, but like, I didn't see any customability with it. With what you could do. Maybe that's something that
I think you can change the color.
Okay,
but that's all I've seen so far.
Like, I would like it to be a little bit more smarter, like integrate the blind spot assist, or be able to I don't know, like
pulse when you activate fart mode.
That'd be cool. Or just pulse for like when you're at your destination, or if you're getting close to a car when you're making a maneuver, like it immediately turns red or whatever. Or like
a charging indicator.
A charging indicator as well.
Plugged in, it could pulsate faster if you're. Well, that might be a little.
I think maybe just make it dark. Well, like basically, if they could, because I'm sure you can probably maybe not make it like a progress bar. Make it so that it meets in like the middle. Yeah.
Right.
And turns full green versus.
That would be cool.
Something like that. Like, get creative with this thing rather than maybe they will in the future. Maybe I'm just jumping the gun on this.
I'm not sure what its limits are because they haven't really showcased. All we really know is that it's a RGB light strip, so it's possible to change color through the Tesla screen. But I don't see anything indicating that it's like dynamic, like it can pulsate or have one side one color and then the other side a different. Maybe that's all via software. They might be baking in. That'd be a perfect little holiday update, you know?
Maybe.
Now this light does this. But also, it's perfect, in my opinion, for what the Model 3 needs, because the design hasn't changed all that much. I can even attest to that in the past 5-6 years now. Jeez. And it's been kind of standard. The sales for it weren't that great. So what they needed wasn't necessarily a ton of functional changes, because honestly, it's supposed to be the entry-level model, so they can't make it that much more functional.
Right.
But they needed flashy, bougie stuff. They needed, like, how do we make it obvious that it's different from last time? How do we put in some cool, slick, new, hot features that catch the eye? And lighting is a great way to catch the eye.
Right.
So the ambient light strip is probably not that expensive, I'm guessing. It's pretty thin and it's not that intricate. But it was probably a very simple thing that they could add and make it abundantly clear. Oh, yeah, that's the new one. This is different. This is a whole new thing. So I was like, yeah, if you were trying to get more people talking about the Model 3, that's a good way to do it. That makes sense.
The elimination of the wood as well kind of makes me bittersweet, because it kind of shows that
you liked the wood.
I like the. I've got wood in mine and I like it. You've got the white interior, so you just have the white panel. Now they just got rid of that entirely, and now it's just a black. Or I guess, does it turn? No, I don't think it does. Like,
it's fine woven. It's a
whatever
mesh
it is.
fabric.
Are you bringing in Apple
But-
terms right here for the case on this?
You brought EV stuff into tech, so now I'm bringing tech into EV.
Oh,
But
okay, fair game then.
what I'm skeptical of or excited to try out, because I mean, as much as I love my Model 3, I still have to admit I'm a huge sedan fan, and
Okay.
both, I am huge and I like sedans. So I appreciate that there is an even more efficient option now that has NACS, which is a must-have these days, and it gained features, and it should be pretty affordable, and it should be made at scale. So I want to try this out, but people are saying the screen is more responsive in all the reviews. But they're saying it's the same CPU, it's the same AMD Ryzen chip. So I'm like, did they up the refresh rate
Ooh.
to 120 hertz?
In your eyes would
wondering
be
if
the
that's what
ones
they
I could
meant.
tell.
I got to do a slow-mo video whenever I check one out, because I need to verify. That would make it so much cooler to me if they, because I remember way back when I first was checking out Model 3s, I had all these nitpicky requests, but I was like, oh, well, Tesla's never going to do that. That's so tiny. That's such a little detail.
That's such a tech
pretty much
enthusiast
everything I
idea.
suggested. Yeah. Pretty much everything I suggested they've done. Originally, when I checked out like a 2018 Model 3 for the first time, I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool, but I wish that was Type-C. Oh, they wouldn't do that. It's not a... Oh, then they add it. And then I'm like, well, this is cool, but, it'd be nice if the CPU was a little faster for this screen. And then they do it. And then, oh, well, it'd be nice if these seats were ventilated, but I'm getting picky. Whatever, it's still a great... And then they add the ventilated seats. So I'm just going to keep asking, because it seems like they listen based on what people are asking for. So who knows? Maybe it's 120 hertz, but
Would be an interesting change.
I'm sorry you don't love it in terms of aesthetics.
Well, I was never super interested in the Model. The only time I was interested in the Model 3 was when I wanted to potentially replace my Honda Civic and my Volvo that were both dying.
Uh-huh.
And we looked at the Bolt, the Chevy Bolt, and the Chevy Volt, and we found that the hybrid Chevy Volt was more ideal than the Chevy Bolt in terms of interior design. But the Chevy Bolt is what we wanted in terms of an all-electric vehicle. And so it's like, okay, well,
Interesting.
we want more space for, like, putting stuff into the car, because that's what we do. We put a bunch of stuff in our cars.
Yeah.
We're Americans.
So the 3 wasn't good because it's the only Tesla that's
The
not
3
a hatch,
was
basically.
like, if they're not going to make an affordable big Tesla, which became the Model Y,
yeah.
then I guess the Model 3 might do, unless Legacy Auto comes out with something better. And, of course, then the Model Y comes out, it's like, okay, well, I guess we're getting that. I've never really been a big fan of the Model 3, besides the fact that it paved the way for the Model Y. And it's a cool sedan. I got to drive yours a little bit, not too far, when I got to babysit it, and it was like, oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
This is what it's like living with a sedan again. Yeah.
I love it, personally. I get that we have different needs, but I'm still just such a huge fan of the smaller... I just like more efficient if possible. And this is pretty much as efficient as I can get without buying a Lucid. Sorry, Corey. But
Dear Lord.
I still, I'm excited for this to come to the U.S. I just have no idea when that will be.
Right. The timeline is kind of up in the air of when they will... Is Fremont still stopped on production of Model 3s? Because it seems like they haven't stopped.
That's a good question. So I've been following it pretty closely because I'm very curious. There's not obviously a ton of videos I can do about it because there's not much updates. But there have been now, obviously there were masked Highland. Sorry, I know you don't like that word. But there have been masked Highland Model 3 sightings, which we all saw around the Fremont factory, Model 3s that were all covered up. And everyone's like, that's not real. And we were like, I think it's real. And now there's been some sightings without the coverings, obviously, because it's been
Cat's
revealed.
out of the bag.
Everybody, cat's out of the bag, so it doesn't mean too much if you spot one in the U.S. But there have been some spotted in the Bay Area, which I doubt they're imported. I guess it's possible that they could have been an import, but They did say on the last earnings call that they expected production to be lower due to factory upgrades. They didn't say what that meant. Honestly, Elon and no one in North America, Tesla, has actually acknowledged the refresh at all. This is purely just
European.
It's only been announced
phantasm
and showcased by Shanghai, Europe, Australia. They get it, but if you ask any Tesla person about it in the US, they're like, "The what? What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know what that is." Which is very awkward because it's very painfully obvious that they are going to bring it to the US. It's just a matter of time, but
well, it's like driving a Cybertruck in New Zealand. It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Or it's just like driving a Cybertruck.
In general.
It stands out.
It's just like driving in Europe. Who does that? Like,
it's like owning
why don't you
a
take
vehicle
trains?
in Europe. Well, just take the train. Right. So I'm sure it's really awkward because this is like worst case scenario for Osborne, right? Doesn't this mean everyone in the US is like, don't buy, just wait a couple months?
Maybe. I mean,
or do you
think about a lot of buyers, again, who aren't tech enthusiasts or who aren't up to date on the news of everything. And they're just like, I need a new car. This one's electric. Oh, it's a Tesla? Cool. And then that's it.
So the uninformed are to benefit, I guess.
That's a better way to put it than whatever spaghetti wordplay that I was playing before. But yeah, I would definitely say that those who are uninformed or those that don't care would just go ahead and opt for...
Maybe those who want gear stocks.
Or those that want a cheaper car. Because it seems like adding ventilated seats and LED light strip, indicator lights, and whatever else they're adding to this thing...
probably drive the price up, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to drive the price up, and by how much, we don't know. Because you could try to convert it from what's listed on the Chinese website, but that's apples to bananas at this point.
Okay. That's apples to hand grenades. That's like because they have different incomes there. There's different currency, and then Tesla prices things based on region demand and everything. So just because it's cost, I mean, translated, I remember doing the announcement video. Like if you converted the currencies, the Giga Shanghai Model 3 was like $32,000 US. I was like, that does not mean they're going to charge that here because they know it's a different market, different availability, cost more to make because it's in America versus in China. Right. So my question to you, because I'm in agreement that yes, it will probably go up. In fact, there will likely be a huge influx in orders, which will drive prices up just like it did for the Plaid SNX. Do you think the refreshed Model 3, when it launches in the US, could it get more expensive than the Model Y?
That's a really great question. I think I'll fire it back with... I want you to answer this as well in terms of when do you think the car comes out, or when it finally gets produced out of Fremont factory, and also if there's going to be improvements with it or not, if we're still going to see the same QC or not at Fremont with this new Model 3.
Oh.
But then also the price of it probably...
Yeah.
I know that you don't like this because on Twitter you keep on driving conversations with this, but the starting price of the Model 3 when they finally produce it, plus minus 10% of the price, just give me a number. But I would say there is a possibility that it does go higher than what the current Model Y pricing is right now, for maybe the base price. That'd be very interesting. Model Y being the cheapest car that they make that you can buy, I guess I should say.
Yeah, that sounds wrong, but when you think about supply and demand, there's going to be more Model Ys than anything.
Right.
And the Model Y is also going to be missing a bunch of features that the SX and 3 all have. So to me, I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that the Y would be the cheapest because there's so many of them.
I'll say it'll come close, but it'll still be below. I think the Model 3 will still be the breadwinner in terms of best bang for your buck. For, I guess, best value.
If you just need a Tesla of some kind and you don't care about anything else.
Yeah, and you're trying to go for least costly but newest on the market. Definitely. I think the Model 3 still gets there. and then I'd have to look at whatever the price of a Model Y is today, and then subtract probably $2,000 from it, and that's so probably $2,000 under what the current, whatever it is, end of September price is for the Model Y here in 2023. I think subtract about 2,000 or 3,000 from it. That's what the starting price is going to be for the Model 3 refresh.
Yeah.
And then, I guess to answer my
official
question,
trail.
I don't think the Fremont QC is going to be fixed with this.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so either. But
I think we're still going to see panel gaps, and it's still going to be a headache, and people are still going to say Tesla has bad QC. And it's just going to be people who know it be like, well, it's Fremont, but then we have no excuse at this point because they just redesigned the Model 3.
Fremont.
I guess our excuse is, well, the Model 3 is still an existing product, and they were still making it, and there was no way that they could just stop the bus for the whole entire factory and remake the factory in whatever way they want. Like,
I'm glad you brought that up. Are you surprised at all that they didn't switch to Giga castings?
Yes. Yes and no.
Okay.
Well, mostly yes. No, in terms of like,
'Cause I was.
Keeps things simple with keeping the same manufacturing methods, so that way you don't have to fit another giant machine in there, because you can't probably reuse the same machine that you've got kicking out castings for the Model Y. You have to get a whole different machine.
True.
So then you have to find
Shouldn't
a place
it be
to put
smaller
that.
though?
It's still
Be a
another
little one?
giant machine. These are
Giga
not.
casting mini.
It's a mega casting.
Mega
then,
casting.
Right? Yeah, it's just a mega casting. Just go down in order of magnitude, and then maybe it's a kilo casting.
Kilo casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I think this is mainly. I don't know, because then you could say, well, Giga Shanghai, they still have a bunch of real estate to expand out and use Giga castings, and maybe they
That's
do,
true.
but no, I don't know. I honestly cannot tell you why. Maybe just product simplicity. This is mainly just a refresh in terms of exterior bodywork, and not necessarily
Right.
in terms of the structure internally of the system.
It's very surface level. Although I do think there was some suspension upgrades they mentioned, but I watched a few people do test drives with them, and everyone was saying it wasn't that different.
It's not game changing like how Model Ys were when they were first produced versus how Model Ys are today.
Yes, I've heard a lot more people rave about that. About like some, I don't remember when it was, 2022 or something. They switched the suspension design on the Y, and apparently it's better now. I haven't experienced it, but
I have.
yeah, I think
Kind of.
Oh, you got to check out the performance?
I got to check out Randy's Performance Model Y, in which I forget if Brittany gave it a name or not, but
How was it? How did it feel?
it was kind of weird sitting in the back of a Model Y. That wasn't mine. or even just sitting in the back of a Model Y in general.
Did it feel smoother at all?
Yesn't. The issue with it is that it's a performance because of it's a performance, it's going to have stiffer suspension. It's also got a lower ride height. So
that's right.
I didn't notice the ride height per se. Kind of hard to feel that difference when you've been in a truck for a while on a road trip, and then trying to recall from your Model Y's ride height.
Right.
From
you
months
didn't
ago.
have back to back.
It wasn't a back to back. I'd have to drive my Y all the way over, and then that'd be pretty fun comparing apples to apples in a way with those two Model Ys. But it could have been. I think it might have been net even, honestly, because mine's a long range all wheel drive, so it's less stiff suspension. But Randy's is a newer Model Y, so it's got the more refined suspension system, but it's a performance, so it's a little bit stiffer. So it could just be right there in terms of the same stiffness that I was already feeling before. But otherwise, it was actually the fun thing about this. It's still kind of in the realm of the refresh Model 3 and all that. Notice how I caught myself right there.
You almost did it.
I almost did it. It was cool to see Randy's Model 3 Phoenix, because I got to ride in that, and then also ride in the Model Y, and see how those two vehicles are basically, if you combine them together, is what makes my car. Because It's a Model
Oh,
Y,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
got it's the new interior in the Model Y there. Not
Right.
the refreshed
Uh-huh.
Model 3 interior, but the newish one. But the
Mm-hmm.
Model 3 has the old interior, but it's a Model 3. So it was cool seeing the differences, but I still think I prefer my interior more. But my wife
Really?
disagrees and likes the new material or the new interior a bit better
Yeah.
because it's less
Your wife is
smudgy.
right.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for agreeing with my wife again.
She-
Jeez.
No, the new. But how do you feel about the new? So we've got three different center consoles now
Dear
to
Lord.
compare. We've got yours that's in Jarvis and
Right.
Phoenix, and then we've got the one in mine
And
that's in
Randy's Model
Pearl
Y. Yeah.
and Brittany's Model Y.
Sorry.
And
Yeah,
we've
right.
got the new one coming in the not a Highland but totally Highland Model 3, which has the different like the tabs are separated from each other. I guess maybe I shouldn't ask because you haven't seen it in person, but based on first glance,
At the videos and photos of it, it reminds me of the Model S and X. It seems like they took that touch of
oh yeah,
luxury.
with the cup holder adjustments too.
Yeah, I think yours also kind of has somewhat something like that, but it's a different way of
Well, it's like a garage door style where you can
right.
push on it, but
Push forward or
my
backward.
cup holders don't move. They're
Right.
like fixed.
I think it's okay. Um, Again, I'm just gonna echo what I said before. I'm not really a fan of this refresh on the Model 3. I think the only thing that it did right was I don't even know. Yeah, I guess the ventilated seats.
Ventilated seat.
That's the only thing that I'm interested in, which only makes me more excited for what the new Model Y will bring. If it brings
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
else new, or if it's just going to just carbon copy what Model 3 did and be like, well, now it's also got ventilated seats, and it's also got this new
Mm.
light design on the front, and also the LEDs inside and all that. Like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a screen. I think a lot of these upgrades, they're exciting, but it makes me question, is this going to increase the costs much? And
Right.
if not,
Yeah.
like, cool. It's great that we finally got to the point where we now have heated and ventilated seats in a car that costs what it does for its
Yeah,
entry
it should
price.
have those things.
Yeah,
Right.
it should have those. Finally. People comparing the BMWs and Teslas is like, well, at least this has ventilated seats. Now it's dead even.
I mean, it was in very cheap cars too. I think there were ventilated seats in like $30,000 cars. So people were like, "Why doesn't Tesla have these?" But
right.
to make you a bit more thankful for your current Tesla or skeptical of ventilated seats, I've heard people say that the ventilated seats don't age as well. Like
The
mesh,
perforation.
the perforation is weaker. Like
Mhm.
the material is more prone to, for one, it picks up dust and sand stuff easier because there's all these tiny little holes, and it also, people said, gets more dirt picked up in it. Like, I don't know. I read someone explaining their review because they had a white interior Model 3 like me, and they also had a white interior plaid Model S,
Mm-hmm.
and the 3 was like 4 years older, and it still had aged better. They said it was still like good as new, but the plaid one, which they had only had for a year, was showing signs of the perforation kind of tearing and
Mm-hmm. Getting a little bit more wrinkly.
collecting stuff.
That's what happens when you poke a
Yeah.
bunch of holes in material. Like, you can try to stiffen it up as much as you can, but in the end, it's just going to start wrinkling. So
True.
it's kind of tough.
And Chris from Dirty Tesla had this aftermarket accessory that, I know it's not technically making the seat cooled, but he had this like little headrest thing you could buy that apparently.
Yeah, I saw an ad for that on, I think, Instagram or something like that. And the first thing I thought is, how is it powered? Is this thing going to malfunction and start blowing hot air on my back? And is it going to start melting down and ruin my seat in some way?
I want to research this. I don't know. I kind of like the idea. I don't want a sponsorship or anything. I want to see if this is effective
Also,
form of cooling.
if you notice when you're driving an electric car that turning on the HVAC is going to cost you some energy. Now you've got more HVAC occurring in the vehicle, but you're having to power it either through the vehicle by plugging it in,
Yeah.
or I guess you're now having to deal with more batteries that you have to manage for another device in the car. So
Yeah, I guess so.
I think the perforated seats, or the ventilated seats, whatever you want to call it, the ventilated seats are probably more worth it. Vacuuming will probably help with getting rid of a lot of that dirt buildup in there. Specifically ones that have a moving brush, so that way it actually induces some mechanical motion on the seat, so that way the dirt dislodges a little bit from both the brush and the suction. But yeah, I could see why, like, this might be a problem. It will be a problem. Just think about all the problems, like what you had with your car, where you had to get a whole new seat. Like, now you have to worry about ventilated seats.
That's a very simple sensor. Now there's more things to break.
Yeah. And this is for a low-cost car, I guess.
Right.
It just means they have to get a little bit more smarter on the manufacturing and building of it, and then also the servicing of it, so that way it's less of a headache on the customer, and also on their end too. Because if the customer's having headaches, your service centers are going to have headaches.
Service center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It only makes sense for them to hopefully engineer it correctly.
And the last thing I'll ask about the center console is they switched from having two 30-watt USB-C ports to now one 65-watt, I think, USB-C port. Do you think that's a worthy trade? Would you rather have one 60-watt or two 30s?
Two 30s. I've already found, because I'm already dealing with one port. I got, in the early Model Ys, it came with one USB-C port and one USB-A port, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it came with one of each. So even if and this is even for, it's occupying one of the ports for the wireless charging.
Charger?
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Interesting.
If I want to use that second port, I have to unplug the wireless charger, and I use that wireless charger all the time when I'm in the car.
See, my wireless chargers aren't touching anything. Those are just integrated.
So you wouldn't be losing anything. You'd basically have the same system as me if you got this Highland. Oh, dear Lord, I said the word. This refresh Model 3.
We got it.
Clown paint all over my face. It's all egg everywhere. If you had the refresh Model 3 and only had, I think it only has this one port, right? You'd be in the same situation as me right now with the Model Y, where I'm only able to use one port without sacrificing something. So I would much rather what you have right now, which is a wireless charger that is already wired into the system internally.
There's no other wires. You can't unplug it.
And then there's two ports available that are limited in terms of amperage, but
30 watts is pretty good.
30 watts, not bad. What are you trying to power that's more than 30 watts in the car besides your MacBook, sir? That no one really... That's a use case that I think maybe isn't too niche, but like it's niche enough to where it's like you found in your experiments, or at least your usage, that you neither really decrease or increase in charge much at all. So... Yeah,
my 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro basically breaks even when I plug into the 30 watts. It doesn't gain or lose a charge, but it'd be nice. That's interesting you say you'd rather have two, because I'm actually the opposite. I would rather have the 160 watt, because then my MacBook could actually charge up if I needed it to, but it's not a big deal. It was one of those decisions that the Tesla team had to make, like which is better, and I was curious where you fell on that. But
I'd rather two. It just means that you get to plug in more things rather than have to deal... This is a
30-watt brick.
Yeah, rather than
one of these.
Having to deal with adapters or multi-port adapters, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. I don't want to deal with those.
Okay.
I'd rather
That's
just
fair enough.
Two ports, and then if I need more ports, then I might end up getting a multi-port adapter. Otherwise...
True.
Two ports is probably like something that I will see needing. One port is stretching it too thin. 0 ports means, well, I'm I'm gonna be pretty mad not being able to plug in stuff into my car.
Yeah, but you could technically do two MacBooks with two 30 watts, so that's That's kind of
versus
legit.
in
I
this
don't know
new
why
one, you
would,
can only
but
do
could.
one, unless you want to tap into
Yep.
the ones behind, I think. So
Can send a lot of power to one device or some power to two devices. Yeah, I guess that provides more.
I'd rather some than
You're
none.
making me feel better about my car. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Your car
You're like,
is
yeah,
a
mine is better. I
masterpiece.
got gear stocks. I got better seat material. I got more ports. This is great.
Hey, I have a new affinity for lithium iron phosphate batteries. That I think they're pretty cool with
Heck yeah.
relying on one
Super underrated.
Yeah. On this road trip, I'm doing a lot of working on the go, and I rely on a lithium iron phosphate battery, and it feels so. It's so great to be able to just charge it up to 100%, not have to worry about like its health, and then deplete it down to like 5% or 1% on very rough days, and not feel guilty about plugging it back in and getting it up to 100%. Meanwhile, I have another
It's like
battery.
range anxiety, battery health anxiety, or battery health guilt.
Well, it's great just
I'm
to like
hurting
charge
it.
something to 100% and not worry about it, knowing
Yes.
the lot. I mean, again, someone who's a little bit more not ignorant but just not aware of battery chemistries, they wouldn't know. They would be charging up regular lithium ion batteries to 100% all the time, and
Yeah.
wouldn't be a problem
Wouldn't
to
think
them.
about it.
And which it's just degrading the battery a little bit quicker over time, but it's technically not a huge loss at the end of the day because you're still going to get the amount of usage that you're expecting probably. But it is something that I noticed with another battery I have on this road trip that powers some other devices, because I've got two batteries on this road trip. One that's LFP and one that's lithium ion. And the lithium ion actually charges slower, but it's also a smaller battery, but charges slower.
Oh. Huh.
And just I have to worry about its health, while the big LFP battery, plug that sucker in every single time it goes down to single digits, and there's no issue. It's LFP is the future.
I agree. I think if there's people out there that are thinking, electric's cool, but it needs to get cheaper before I would consider it, then you're probably going to buy an EV with an LFP pack. That's what probably the vast majority of people are going to be driving with in the future. And speaking of battery packs, I realize we haven't talked about this because it's been so long. Tesla removed the 4680 Model Y from the configurator.
Rest in
after
peace,
all
4680 Model Y.
Back and forth. Oh, so you're saying rip. You're saying it's done. You don't think it's coming back then?
I'm joking.
Interesting.
I think it's going to come back. I think what they're doing right now is the Tesla approach of all in on the new product, and specifically
the new Cybercell.
Yeah, specifically for Giga Texas. They know that they need to get this truck out. They've waited too long, and they've already made a lot of promises, and also have backtracked on a lot of other ones, and kind of left a bunch of it in a gray area. And I'm pretty sure what they're focusing on now is, let's make sure that this Cybercell manufacturing process gets done correctly, and we can output as much as we can and scale it as quick as we can in a small time period. So that way we can make as many Cybertrucks as we can. Because Giga Texas is, as far as we know, the only place that they're building Cybertrucks. And so
pretty much, yeah.
There's a whole lot of demand from one factory. And they already have three factories making Model Ys. So
that's true.
And they already have one on this continent that we're sitting on right now that is making Model Ys for the whole United States. And then they have ones in Shanghai going to Canada. So it makes sense to me if they had to cut some loose ends. The 4680 Model Y was a shoo-in because it probably isn't gaining a whole lot of appeal. Just because
it wasn't that great a product.
It wasn't too amazing as a product, but then also you're not losing anything if you're cutting it out, because it means that you have all these cells or all these workers available to work on the big truck. So
well, then let me ask you, do you think that version of the 4680 Model Y is done? Like, maybe they'll make more 4680Ys in the future, but they'll use the higher energy density and it'll be a longer range version? Or do you think that specific version that they've delivered before that we know people who took delivery, are they going to keep making that the cheaper cell, the not cyber cell?
I think it
Or
could
is
go
that
both
cell done?
ways, honestly, on whether they wanted to just go flat out on Cybercell and then integrate those into Model Ys whenever and if ever they return to Model Ys
Yeah,
at Giga
that would
Texas.
make sense to me.
Because if you're already like perfecting the production of this improved cell, why do you want to make one that is the same form factor but is less effective, I guess, at providing range?
Yeah.
And you're now having to make that in conjunction with another cell at the same location when you're like, it's either you're diverting resources one way or another way. And it's just, what way do you want to cut this? Where do you want to draw the line? Do you want to draw the line on materials that we're putting into these batteries, or do you want to put it into manufacturing processes and how many different lines you want? So
all I could potentially think of is maybe the older cell is cheaper to build, but that's about all I could think of. Other than that, I don't see why you would want to build both.
Right. So that's why I might be leaning more towards the Cybercell goes in to the Model Y at Giga Texas eventually. It's actually kind of it'll be interesting to see if it does return and at what point will it return, because that'll give an indication on how confident they are at making Cybertrucks and scaling them up, because that is the big elephant in the room that they need to solve. And if it means that we're seeing 4680 Model Ys return on the order page, that means that they're quite confident that they can deliver a whole bunch of Cybertrucks without diverting too many resources. And that's when you really want to get a little bit more bullish on the stock. But
yeah,
sure. I would say that's fine. I would say who knows, but at least who's to say?
Drew Baglino knows probably.
But I would say
I wasn't gonna even say Elon knows. I don't think he does. I don't think he's there much, to be honest.
Who knows? It is something that I didn't think about until you brought it up, that it may or may not return. And if it does, what will it look like? They could even...
I think it'd be cool if they got 2170s out of the Model Y. I think that'd be kind of interesting.
2170s out of the Model Y?
If the 4680s are more energy dense now, that they're good enough, they feel comfortable putting them in the long range and the performance, and they don't need 2170s because they got Cato Road for Fremont, and then they've got Giga Texas building cells, of course. So what do you do with all those 2170s at that point? Semi or
all the Model 3s and semis, probably. Yeah. Because it seems like that's where they want batteries. It would be. I just popped up in my head at the very end of that sentence that I was completing. We could... there is a chance we don't see a Model Y come out of Giga Texas again until the refresh of the Model Y comes out. So it had a short run at Giga Texas in the form that it did, and then it finally gets the update that the Model 3 is getting overseas. And that might line up pretty well with ramping up Cybertruck, so that way you've got all your factory workers understanding like how to make this vehicle as quick as possible, and then move on to let's build up more Model Ys as well, because people like the Model Y.
Oh yeah, that's their top seller for sure. I would hope that they could do both. I would hope that they could keep, because we know Giga Texas can build 2170 Model Ys too. They're capable of using imported cells. So my hope is that whole side of the factory can keep cranking out Ys, and then Cybertruck can do its own separate thing. But yeah, sometimes it's easier said than done, that's for sure.
Right. Or if they just add different projects there, so maybe they don't even do Model Y there anymore. Maybe they just move it over to they just let Fremont handle the Model Y, and then robo-taxis get built at Giga Texas.
Because There has been rumors of that because Giga Mexico's not going well, apparently.
It's going a little slow, but honestly, that was expected from me. Nothing's going to go up like Giga Shanghai. That thing was an anomaly in terms of how quick it could go. And then
you were the voice of reason in the ocean of bulls, because when Giga Mexico was announced, all the talk on the town, everyone was saying, oh, this is going to be record time. That's going to be up and running in 9 months. It's going to beat Shanghai's record.
Would be cool.
But you were like, nah, I don't think so.
It's going to take time. Especially, China will get it done quick if it means that it's going to generate profit for the country. But
yes,
and
China's just fast in general. That doesn't mean they're good, for the record.
They know how to manufacture, or they know how to build up a factory quickly. Where
yes,
not saying that Mexico isn't as technologically adept, but yeah,
there's just more red tape, I think, in most countries. The same thing in the U.S.
Well, we saw with Berlin. Berlin had so much different red tape that they had to cut through that took them months upon months just to get done. And
it felt like it took a year longer than it should have, simply because of permits and paperwork and requirements
and all that.
Yeah, and it was like, geez, we're protesting an electric car factory for the good of the planet. Makes so much sense.
Versus the coal factory a couple miles over.
Yeah. They weren't protesting the gas car factories, but yeah, I think from what I've read, Giga Mexico, they haven't even broken ground yet, which automatically puts it at a severe disadvantage from
So they're at the
Shanghai.
same level that Nikola is in New Mexico then. Sweet. Or Arizona. Yeah. Great.
Right. There's just a lot of paperwork, and the rumors are that because it's taking so long, they're actually going to build the next gen platform at Texas instead of Mexico, because Mexico's not ready and Texas is. So
I think Tesla has a bunch of stuff on their hands right now. They have a lot of time on their hands and a lot of things to get done. And I think with the resources that they have right now, they need to become a lot more crafty with how to ramp up vehicle production, where trying to introduce a whole new platform probably isn't the right time right now with what they're trying to accomplish with introducing a truck to the market. And we can already see that's pretty tough to do. Well, okay, well,
yeah.
Just like companies like Nissan trying to find success with the Nissan Titan and then having to cancel production of that this year just because, like, well, it just doesn't make sense to make this anymore because of financials or other reasons. Yeah, there's too much that we have to deal with. Our leaves aren't making enough money. What do we do? Cancel the Titan, I guess. But I would say
don't grow on trees.
I would say,
but the leaves do.
Right, kind of. Kind of, they do. Cybertruck, I think, is, in my opinion, it's the giant hurdle that Tesla has to get across right now. There's FSD is also another big hurdle, but like, if you're talking about things that will generate,
it's already late.
Yeah, it's already late. Things that will generate money in a short time span, if you want to hop on it, it's the giant Polygon on wheels. They have to get on that now. So I'm not surprised that they canceled, or not canceled, but they took off the 4680 Model Y.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was surprised, but I shouldn't have been, because the more I think about it, the more sense it makes to stop making that one. But did you catch we were talking about the next gen vehicle platform, but did you see the pictures in Elon's book about the little prototype and the picture Franz is standing in front of? Did you have any thoughts on because this topic doesn't generate a lot of clicks, that's why I save it for near the end of the podcast, but it gets me personally really excited. I really want to know more about this. I want Tesla to make their own Aptera, basically. I think that would be amazing. I think this is an underappreciated segment, and I'm just a big efficiency guy. Like, make the vehicle smaller, more efficient, super energy, like super low energy consumption, but can still transport a couple people in an enclosed space. I saw an Arcimoto.
Oh, nice!
For the first time.
They're pretty cool to see on the road.
I've never seen one around where I live. I wasn't far from home, and I was just like, "What the? There's an Arcimoto. What the heck? That's cool." But it's it's open and everything. I like the concept of an enclosed HVAC place, so you can still drive it in bad weather, but super efficient and super aerodynamic. Looks like the future.
Right. Design with a purpose. I think my reaction to this, basically, supposed robotaxi that looks like it has 3 wheels, it came at the same curve that my reaction was to the Cybertruck back in 2019. I was very much like, oh goodness, what is this? Why would you do that? Oh, they're just copying? Wait, why are they? Oh, I think I get it now. Ah, pretty cool. So
like it took a minute.
It took a minute for me to be like, okay, this is kind of cool. I had to kind of dig myself out of my Aptera biasness of like,
okay,
protect this child at all costs. Nothing can harm the Aptera, like not even this concept image. Don't let it enter your mind. But looking at it after a couple weeks of it kind of sinking in and realizing this is something that Tesla's thinking about, it's cool. It's neat. It's very much a hybrid approach in terms of concept images of the sexy lineup and the Cybertruck. It's the nice blend between the 5 of them, or maybe 6 if you want to include the Roadster in a way, because it is small like a Roadster.
And the semi.
I guess so. It does get me excited. The idea that what maybe differentiates it is that it's basically 3 seats. It's just the third or the second row of a Model 3 or Y or S or X in a way.
They got the airbag to work with that center display still on this.
That's something that I'm interested in. Is okay, you don't put a center seat in the Cybertruck because like maybe it's a safety concern with that center screen, but
right.
I guess there's no steering wheel in this thing because it's a robotaxi. So then you technically
so maybe there's no screen.
Well,
it's just a giant airbag in the front.
I think there's probably maybe it's an integrated screen, or maybe it's a screen that's pushed back a little bit more towards the windshield.
I think Tesla, if they were designing a robotaxi, again, I doubt they will figure out that code, but in the reality that they do figure out that code, to me it would be so like them to not have a screen. You just get in this vessel and there's nothing there, and you watch all the stats on your phone. Like the app tells you your speed, where you're going, what it costs. To me, that sounds like them.
Debugging would make it a tad of a nightmare if like it's stuck, let's just say, in the middle of an intersection in, I don't know, Texas or San Francisco, where it's clogging up
you have to steer it with the phone.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm just thinking like
the accelerometer.
Yeah, being like a worker on that, it's like, how do we get this thing out of there? Do we have to like deactivate it and then push it out of there or something like that? Like, how do you do? At least with like the Bolts and the Waymos, they have a wheel there, so like someone could step in, punch in whatever code to make it drive manually or whatever. Maybe it doesn't even need a code punched in. You just twist the wheel and then it's like, okay, you're the driver then. But with something like this where in your supposed use case, or not use case, but design, it doesn't have a wheel, it doesn't have a screen, it doesn't have mirrors. It's just
I don't think it would even really need speakers.
Interesting. You just listen to music
Interior
on your AirPods.
Speakers. Yeah, they're like, well, do you need a speaker on like a train or a bus when you're riding that? I mean, maybe for announcements, a very basic one that just says, departing location, or
you don't even need that.
Closing,
it could just be a chime, just doom doom, and that just indicates.
It could be like the beeper in my trunk. That's very aggressive.
Oh goodness, that
they fixed that on the Highland, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure they did fix it on the refresh. It was funny looking at Randy's, and I pressed it. I'm like, oh, it's a nice beep. He's like, what do you mean a nice beep? I'm like, oh, it's not like Drew's very jarring, loud trunk noise machine thing.
The worst part of the car.
Oh my goodness! I think
your car does this, and mine does this. It's this terrible beep. They'll put that in the robotaxi so that whenever the door is closing, it goes.
Oh, goodness.
Very annoying.
This also will probably need pedestrian noise speakers as well, so you could. That would be fun.
I
be
could
able
understand.
to have the app, and maybe they give you some functionality of the vehicle, like turn on
Little horn
hazards.
button.
And also a little horn. Oh my goodness, just going down like a city street.
People will map their 15 Pro action button to the horn command.
Oh god.
Robotaxi.
Have you seen that? Some people
Right.
have mapped their fart mode
Yeah.
noise. Sorry. For the action button on the iPhone 15 Pro, I know, tech thing.
Yes.
You're able to use that shortcut functionality on the iPhones to interact with the Tesla app, in which you're able to.
I would do that. I
Yeah.
would use it for that. Mostly precondition the car. A lot of people were setting it to lock and unlock the car, and I was like, why would I?
You don't need that.
You just walk up to the car. You don't need it to do that. But I would like a button that just, when I click it, it cools the cabin. So
Yes.
you don't have to
I
open
agree.
the app and
That's something
stuff.
that me and Brittany agreed on because we both we're both like we're so not into the whole smart features on this car. We don't even precondition our cars. And it would be nice to
well,
have.
you guys
a-
live in nice climates, you know. You probably don't need a precondition.
Well, still, it
Where
gets
I
a little
live-
cold in the morning, or maybe it gets hot in the afternoon. But okay,
Where I
get
live, if
it.
I don't precondition the car, it's going to be 130 degrees when I get inside. It's going to be like,
That's not a joke.
it's like kind of a must. No, I'm not kidding. But on that next gen vehicle platform concept, could you foresee there being any purpose to actually selling those vehicles with the steering wheel and pedals? I understand if it didn't have a steering wheel or pedals, you would not sell it to people.
Not at all. It makes zero sense to me why Tesla would sell it with a steering
Zero?
wheel. Well, look what they're doing with the refreshed Model 3. They already put ventilated seats in it.
about
It
it?
has a steering wheel. It's got blind spot things. Like they've made it.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be the $25,000 car. This is supposed to be the cheaper one. right?
Supposedly for Tesla building it, it might cost $25,000. I don't think they're going to sell it to the random or the regular Joe Schmo who wants to buy a 3-seater. No, it makes no sense to me. If they want to streamline this product
Okay.
and make it as quick as possible to get on the road in giant fleets, reducing options makes sense. Kind of like with what you suppose the Cybertruck is going to be. It's just going to be,
One size.
do you want a Cybertruck? Yes. Okay, here you go. Like that's it. You get no
That's
options
the
on
configurator.
Yeah.
There's a button. Do you want Cybertruck?
Yes. All right, give us money then. Okay, done. I think that's what it's going to be like for this. It's going to be like, do you want this? Like with the
Well, I
semi,
like that idea, but
in a way. It's that the semi even has options.
you don't want them to compete with Aptera though, like as a direct to consumer option, a lower passenger vehicle that's way more efficient.
I don't think it makes sense in terms of like
Interesting.
they're already making the sexy lineup that already accomplishes. I mean, they're already demonstrating it now. People are willing to save
Okay.
money to buy these. You did. You saved up a bunch of money, and so did I, to buy the Model 3 and the Model Y. And
Yeah.
we're happy customers. It would be nice to get a less costly version of it, so that way you can have that nice little like city commuter car. But I don't think that's in Tesla's scope for like adding a steering wheel and pedals to this thing. I think it makes more sense to streamline production, make it a one-size-fits-all robotaxi,
Okay.
and then just let that do its job.
Well,
Meanwhile, the sexy lineup and the Cybertruck, or the sexy cars lineup, does the common person thing.
two sexy cars. That's what it's going to become.
Oh dear Lord.
Well, here's why we might potentially disagree is because you're saying, and I do partially agree with you, it would be more simple to just have all robotaxis, no steering wheel, no pedals. The difference is I know that's not going to happen. So I'm thinking like, well, that's not going to happen because Elon's been saying next year for 8 years or whatever. So I'm just assuming, okay, Tesla wants I'm okay with the way they make this, by the way. If their thought process is we need to design this next generation vehicle, but they use the term platform, right? It's not one car.
Mhm.
So work on it with the thought process of, oh yeah, Elon, I'm sure your robotaxis will be ready by then. I'm sure the code will do great. But then once you've already figured out the design and you figured out how to mass produce it, they talked about this in the book as well. They're saying, Elon, okay, well, yes, it will be ready for robotaxi. You're not quite ready yet, but let's not waste any time. Let's just happen to sell some first. Mm-hmm. And then once your robotaxi code is ready, then we'll take out the steering wheel and pedals, and we'll design it so that it's super easy to remove that in the manufacturing line. It won't be complicated. It'll just be a very ultra minimal, no ventilated seats, probably not even vegan leather. It's probably going to be, fabric seats or something real ocean plastic seats, You sit on a pile of water bottles on the inside. It makes the crunch sound. Here's the $25,000.
Every single time it decelerates, it just even more.
See, I love the idea of Tesla selling like something close to $20,000 for a 2/3 seater. Maybe it has 3 wheels, maybe it doesn't. It could be something in the middle. I had the thought process of, okay, 3-wheelers don't get the tax credit, right? Because it has to be registered as an auto cycle. Mm-hmm. What if they take the back to make it more teardrop shaped, more Aptera inspired? The 2 back tires are pushed closer together.
Okay.
So they're more centered.
Still 4-wheel
kind of
vehicle.
fits the drawing in the book that we saw in the robotaxi section. You have still technically 4 wheels, but it's a lot more aerodynamic, and it's super small, super efficient. And it could be cyber, it could be steel on the outside, or aluminum, my favorite. Keep it really
titanium.
bare bones. There's not a lot of titanium. Yeah, there's no paint. It could be forged carbon SMC. I don't know. I love the idea of more than one company making the Aptera style vehicle, like a low passenger, high efficient. Maybe this doesn't get 10 miles per kilowatt hour, but it could get 7. That would be still amazing. That would be really impressive to me.
I just see this as more of a niche product for someone who wants to drive it versus someone who wants to ride in it.
Yeah.
Already, we have a whole bunch of people who want the robotaxi fleet to happen, so that way they don't have to pay attention. You have so many people being like, when will Tesla allow me to stop touching the steering wheel and just be able to just
never
enjoy the ride? Well, I
I'll
don't know.
tell you later this year.
I guess what I'm getting at is like, this is a product that doesn't exist yet in terms of like something that you can buy. So there's no real urgency for them to come out with it right now. So that means they've got a lot of time to think about it, and that still gives them more time for excuses to be like, well, why would we put a wheel on this if we could just simplify it by just, I don't know. I guess my thought process is that basically they could...
stupid idea.
I don't think it's a stupid idea per se. I think it's cool. I think we need more unique designs with a purpose on the road, like how Aptera is going forward with. But
yeah,
already people say that Aptera is a weird niche product, and if I don't think this is going to be a product that's going to be
wrong, but
okay. I don't think this $25,000 Model 2, whatever it is, this we'll just call it the Robotaxi. I don't think the Robotaxi is there to compete with the Aptera. It's there to compete with Uber and taxi services alike. And if it means that basically there's no one able to take hold of the steering wheel because there's no steering wheel, they can get away with kind of like what Waymo does and being like, it's a beta, but like here's a bunch of freedoms that we've got with it being a beta, and like us taking a lot of the responsibility for its safety on the road, but also a lot of its behaviors, where it can be more like Mad Max level behaviors of accelerations and decelerations, and they can get away with, we warned you that it's still in it's still in beta phase for the software, so it's going to be a little bit aggressive on some turns. But already we've seen so many people on YouTube do the robo-taxi trips of whether it's very long distances up and down California or wherever else, and it does pretty well. Basically, a lot of the time, little to no disengagements in most scenarios. So if they can get that with this, then that already proves that you don't really need to put a wheel and accelerator and brake pedals in it. It can just be that weird pod that is a little bit jumpy, but is great for inner city travel, kind of like how Zoox and Waymo and Cruise are trying to capitalize on it right now, in which it seems like Waymo's getting their system pretty well ironed out in the Bay Area to where it's pretty smooth and seamless and isn't getting caught in the middle of intersections, while Cruise is the ones making barriers everywhere. They've got
driving
a lot more
in wet cement.
Oh my goodness. Or driving through crime scenes or anything else like that, like I saw.
Or making crime scenes.
Dear Lord. And then Zoox just trying to get off the ground as well, trying to get stuff going. So I think
as much
Tesla
as I'm obsessed with the Tesla smart car, I still you're right in the fact that those types of low passenger vehicles, smaller vehicles, do not sell that well in the US.
I think they just have too many excuses to not sell it to people in terms of like a person to drive. Like they have plenty of excuses to be like, if you want to do a fleet, then use our vehicles and we get a fee. And or you basically just rent it from us as a fleet owner, fleet renter, I guess. You'd basically be the fleet renter, and then whenever you want to stop, it just basically becomes a whole like trickle down pyramid scheme business, not in the dirty ways, but in the ways of like how responsibility is broken down.
Pyramid scheme,
the best possible, if that makes sense. But yeah,
it makes sense if they can make the robotaxi code work.
It already kind of works right now, in which that's good enough because we've already seen Google trying to do it for the last decade, I think. And they've gotten this far with the Waymo system. So I would say around, like, with how FSD beta or autopilot is right now, they could easily get away with throwing it into this thing and being like, yep, costs $5 a mile for right now.
Oh, gee.
Or,
Someone would do it.
Probably to say that they're in the robotaxi.
Omar would do it.
There's many names on the Twitterverse or Xverse that would probably do it as well.
Just anyone with those affiliate badges on Twitter.
I'm sure. But
they would all pay $5 a mile. They'd make it back in Twitter revenue.
In essence, I would say this is a cool, exciting concept image. I think it definitely has potential, but I don't think it's going to be any Aptera competitor.
I hate how much sense you're making right now. But
you're welcome.
I'm still going to hope, because in my opinion, the vast majority of vehicles on the road have less than 2 people in them, and there's going to be a lot of people more interested in cheaper forms of transport, and I don't think it would be that niche personally, simply because Tesla's making it. I think Tesla can make their own segments. I don't think they need to look at what the market's buying. They could probably come up with one. And I mean, a lot of people say that about the Cybertruck, right? It's not even a pickup. It's like this weird new tank thing, and everybody wants it. It has a bed, but that's
people are going to buy what they're going to buy. It's just
yes,
the summary of the market. If there's something that just doesn't make sense logically, there's still going to be a group of people who are going to be like, here you go, here's all my money, give me the weird polygon.
I want the tiny polygon. That's what I'm interested in. As soon as I saw that picture, I flipped out. I was like, oh, it's beautiful. For one, I love the doors that go up.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Very McLaren.
I always hated the doors.
Yeah, the McLaren
went out.
It's the very McLaren look.
I love the look, and there's render artists that have done a great job trying to make it look more modern and try to convert those drawings into the real world. And seeing Franz stand next to one made me feel hopeful for, like, okay, this is a real thing they're actually thinking about making. I don't want it as a taxi. I guess that would be cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of buying a $20,000 car, I just pay $5 a mile in the Robotaxi beta program that only works between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. in San Francisco, between 3 blocks. But
it's weird how much more sense you're making with the statement right here. What I would like to see is actually the door go backward, kind of like. There's a company called Koenigsegg that is a hyper or supercar maker or whatever. They got doors that pivot forward. They kind of like
cool.
They kind of slide and pivot forward. I'm like, that'd be cool for like the Robotaxi, but the issue with the Robotaxi is that you got two kind of outboardish wheels on the front, so you can't really pivot the door forward. So just do it but backwards. So just almost like a hybrid between what the doors are on right now for the concept of the Robotaxi, but make it like the suicide doors of the Rolls-Royce where they open backwards. But instead of opening upward and or open out like the Rolls-Royce, they slide backwards. Like pivot from the back joint up. That would be cool.
I like any door idea, basically, that's not the traditional door. I've always hated the traditional door design. It's just so, like, we all bang into each other when we park the car. And I'm like, can we just all stop that design? Can we all just move to up and down or straight up or, backward, like you said? Anything that results in the door being able to swing open without hitting something would be nice. Mm-hmm. So I'll take it. Aptera's got them. I'm excited for that. And looks like the Robotaxi has something like it. Maybe the whole front can open. It's just
does this thing even have a front? Does it even have a trunk? This thing looks so compact. It doesn't seem like you can bring anything.
Yeah, in the picture, Franz was standing in front of the mock-up. They had a little area behind the seats, kind of like an Aptera cargo area, where it's like a little bit lifted up for the wheels, but there's some space behind. But again, I don't. Like if you're in a situation where you need more cargo, you'll hail the bigger Robotaxi. Get the Model X Robotaxi when you move your big family around with all your luggage.
What do you think that'll look like? Because like this is easily like, all right, this is the simple city slicker, point A to point B.
Thought they just use a Model X.
1 to 2.
Just use a normal.
Okay, you don't think it's gonna be like a giant toaster box or anything like that?
I guess it would kind of make sense for lower speed transport, but the more toaster you look, the less aero you are at highway speed, which I feel like they would want to prioritize a bit. It's very difficult to make a passenger van that's aerodynamic because they always have these big. We talked about this once, the whole Twinkie idea, the whole the bullet train with the doors in the middle instead of the back.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would design a van.
Just any car. Yeah.
I'm just a big aero guy, but
well, that's what kind of not really what perplexes me here is like this design kind of makes me think, small distance travel, but it also says I'm aero efficient, so I'm like, okay, I guess they're thinking about taking this on the highway potentially if like you're going from airport to like nearby subdivision or something like that. But
they're probably measuring most driving and realizing like the vast majority of driving for people is like 1 or maybe 2 people commuting to work and back. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of highway driving. So and if it's a Robotaxi, it's probably used a lot. It's used all day. So the more aero it is, the smaller you can make the battery pack. And the smaller the battery pack, the cheaper it is. So in my head, there's so many advantages to making it as aero focused as possible. But I get that compromises the functionality. I just don't think the majority of driving requires that much space. So you make a Robotaxi to cover the majority of rides, and then you can use an old-fashioned vehicle for those edge cases where, hey, I'm moving a bunch of suitcases, or there's 7 kids, or whatever. Then you can have the cyber...
Help, I have 7 kids.
You have the Tesla Semi pull up with with a trailer full of Tesla seats that are just plucked from the factory.
It's on like Like the bit. Can't get through the sentence. Like the trailers that basically you would put like it's a flatbed trailer per se, where you could put whatever big object on it and then you strap it / chain it down. You have that, but like Tesla seats bolted onto it. No
it's
cover.
It's a structural trailer. It's they attach the seat straight to the floorboards. Yeah, and then you can fit your family of 60 people on the semi, and it'll drive around autonomously.
That's something that I've actually noticed in on this road trip. There are
families of 60. Oh.
No.
There's too many kids. Oh my god.
There is that. There was a to add the a little bit of the Randy controversy. There was a few billboards, I think in Utah, where it was basically, are you having trouble having too many kids? We have a service for that. However you want to infer that billboard and what it was selling.
It's like a Bill Burr billboard.
Oh.
That's fun to say.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
One thing that I wanted to bounce off of your brain
is
as maybe a last topic.
Okay.
Is it was maybe a month ago or maybe a couple weeks ago at this point. Ford put out a patent or trademark for the F200. And I wanted to get your opinion on what an F200 Ford would be in this ever-growing scaling of EV trucks. And whether it would be like, if the F200 is this T3 truck that they mentioned before.
Ah, I see.
Or if this is an entirely different thing, and this is more like what the 250 is going to be for the F-150 than what the F-200 is going to be for the F-150 Lightning.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. My personal prediction is that F-200 might be just referring to some mid-tier, something between a 150 and a 250, but a gas truck, or maybe it's a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
But I really I'm just saying, I guess, what I hope, because I don't have sources or anyone telling me, but I hope they keep the T3 naming, because I like the naming behind it. They say 3 T's because it stands for trust the truck. That was like the whole terminology behind T3. And I thought that just rolled off the tongue a lot better than F-150. Like, that's too much. But I guess maybe
F-150 Lightning. It's got so many syllables.
It's kind of a mouthful. I like Model 3, Model Y, Cybertruck. You know, I like those simple things. So I like the T3, the Ford T3. I could get behind that. The Ford F-200 sounds a little bit, but I guess there's some legacy they want to upkeep. Obviously, the F-150 is the definition of popular.
It is
incredibly popular.
Only number 2 to the iPhone in terms of global sales of a product. Or I guess maybe it's United States sales of a product.
And long-term sales too. So it's super popular, so I understand why they may not want to abandon that naming scheme. But yeah, now you're getting me excited. Ford, other than, it sucks that they're going through all the strikes right now. That probably threw a huge wrench in their plans. But I really liked the everything Jim Farley was hyping about the T3. Everything he said has gotten me excited. He's like, higher voltage architecture, more aerodynamic emphasis, longer range, better utility, and NACS, of course. So I'm like, okay, this all sounds great. It sounds like Ford's version of a Cybertruck. I'm all on board with that. Mm-hmm. So I'm hopeful that I think Ford's making the right decisions. So while I'm not entirely confident on what F200 is, I do think that they're being the right amount of serious about electrification. I know I didn't follow the new Mustang, the gas Mustang release, but you said, were they claiming that was the last gas one?
It is the last generation of a gas Mustang. I forget what generation it is, maybe generation 8.
Okay.
Afterward,
See, that's what I like to hear. That's a good sign for me. It's like, here's a gas vehicle, but it's the last one of this segment we're going to do. I'm like, okay, yeah, I could get behind that.
right, which it's sad for those that love muscle cars as they are, but I
Yes.
think it opens up, in terms of the world of EVs, what you can do with something that is sporty, but also has a theme per se. Maybe not go as
Right.
crazy as what Dodge is trying to do with the Daytona, whatever it is. I keep on forgetting the name of it. The Banshee, whatever.
I don't know.
That it
You
was
would
at
be the one I would ask about that.
it was at the
So you
Detroit
don't know
Auto
where
Show, and I think a couple of
Okay.
the guys in your Discord got to see it, and
Mm.
the exterior design's interesting. The interior design's meh, and of course the giant speakers that they literally have, like, in an EV car. There's EV car in an EV. There are no
Yeah.
exhaust pipes. There are no mufflers. In Dodge's EV that they're coming out with, it has a muffler on the back per se, but it's literally just a baffle speaker system blowing out a whole bunch of noise.
Hate that.
I would not want that for what would be Generation 9 or whatever it is for the Mustang. Not Mach-E, but the Mustang sedan / fastback / whatever. I would want something that exudes what the Mustang is at heart. And it's not noise, it's performance. So
Yeah, I agree.
at least under Jim Farley's leadership, it seems like Ford is going in the right direction with a lot of different decisions, and it makes me excited with things like the T3 and whatever that's going to be, whether it is turning out to be the F200. The reason why I brought this up is just simply as it's kind of a funny name to just bring out of nowhere. Like, they had the F100 before, and now they're going for F-150 for the Lightning, and then there's now reports for an F200, but, like, why not just do F250 Lightning at the end of the day if you're trying to game on similar names for
Just
products?
a bigger electric. Yeah.
Because the F250s and 350s are probably not going anywhere for a while. They're going to try and make those for as long as they can. And
Yeah,
probably the
they're very
same
popular.
with the F-150 as well, because it's their bread and butter. They're not going to convert that until it's absolutely necessary. But things like what they've done with the Ford Edge and the, I think, Escape, those are done now. They canceled those. So, like, it makes sense that they'll probably come out with new names for those. But F200 for, like, a new truck, it's like, why not just reuse F-250 and then add Lightning to it? And or
You're right. That is
just,
a weird.
it's
I don't understand
it's
that.
so weird in the middle. Like, it's something that I did not expect. Like, 200, why not 250 Lightning, or just like what you said, go all in on T3 or 3T or just anything else that's like a little bit more unique to stand out as its own thing, rather than stepping on the shoulders of a previous product that was a gas product or a gas vehicle.
Yeah, that's fair. No, it's interesting. I'm curious why they would see the need to go somewhere in the middle, dropping the 50s. But
yeah, because we saw this before when Tesla tried making the Model E, and then ended up becoming the Model 3, but then trademarked Model Y.
I like that. 3's got, I don't know what it is. 3 feels like more of a punch. It's a magic number. E just, I don't know, doesn't.
Yeah. Well, but we saw Model
Doesn't
E
hit the
turn
same.
into a team for Ford.
Right.
There's
Right.
I think Team Blue and then the Model E team, in which Blue is still the gas, internal combustion, and maybe diesel stuff, I think. And then the Model E team is all the electric stuff. So I don't think that F200 is going to be a team in itself, but I'm very curious to see what it turns into, whether 200 encompasses everything from 200 to 299, and like they'll just use F250 but then Lightning or whatever, but then wouldn't they already have a trademark for F250? I don't know. Weird semantics that my brain is kind of getting into with this trademark of F250.
That is a
what it
head
means.
scratcher. I really don't know. That's a good question. But honestly, for Ford, I'm mostly just excited for NACS. Like, it's going to be so cool to not have to worry about the charging infrastructure, and just, we're so close. We should be just a few months away from the first adapters being available, and then next year, which is where the next year, which isn't even that long ago. Like, my Model 3, I got a little over a year ago. So, like, about a year from now, we should be hearing about the first NACS non-Teslas coming out. And I'm so excited to just see, because F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E, they're great vehicles, but they're just so limited by that charging infrastructure. So what that means for the F-200 we'll have to wait and see. But I'm still just like, I can't wait to be done with the whole charger drama thing. And just be like, oh yeah, all EVs charge everywhere and go everywhere. It's great.
Yeah.
Now you can just focus on the vehicle itself.
Yeah, with all the miles that the wife and I have been racking up with the truck and the trailer, we found one. I kind of wanted to add this as well, that it would be possible with an electric truck to probably do the road trip that we're doing. It'd just take longer.
Sure.
And
yeah,
it would be nice to have NACS. And that also brought into the discussion that you brought up as well, is like, she was asking when is this whole NACS rollout supposed to come out? And like what vehicle or what manufacturers were getting the NACS port integrated into their vehicles. And it was fun just discussing like, what does this mean for like potential future products that we'd be interested in for trucks, or even just big SUVs in general. And even it was funny, she said some words that echoed what you've said in the past. It's like, wait, is Rivian getting NACS? I'm like, yeah. She's like, why would anyone buy a Rivian tomorrow then? Like, why don't they just wait until 2024 or 2025? A lot of
people probably thinking the same thing.
Like, why don't you just get that? Like, it makes no sense to, like, get the adapter next year and then have to deal with this adapter for the rest of the vehicle life. Just wait one more year, and then now you've got the NACS port to where, like, you can use it at a great many more chargers than already exist today.
Yes.
And then probably also around that time, the Rivian Adventure Network is going to be getting, they'll be getting those adapters either put in on their existing ones or also included with the new stalls that they're putting all over the United States. And
if they were smart to avoid people from Osborning, I would switch to NACS sooner than you claim. Like,
I think it's probably just something on the logistics side for Tesla, that Tesla's like, okay, you want NACS? Cool.
They need the software.
You're going to have to wait until this date so that way we can all integrate this easily. And so it's probably just a bunch of engineers at Tesla sweating bullets trying to get the NACS.
Well, I could see the adapter thing being pretty simple. It's like trying to figure out how to communicate between the EV and the charger. Once you get that code figured out, then switching to NACS just means it's the same protocol, you just skip the adapter. There's no little in-between plug. Now there's no middleman. Now you can just plug straight into the car and it has the same communication as before. So that's probably a good gradual way to roll it out. But yeah, if I was Rivian or Ford, I would switch way before I tell people I'm going to switch. I would not say in 2025 we'll switch, because everyone's going to stop buying them. So I'd say, yeah, I'm switching in 2025. And then I'd switch in the summer of 24 and say, surprise, we're ahead on
Why is no one buying our F-150 Lightning for the year of 2024? Why it's sales dip?
Right.
I don't know.
What could it be? The uninformed, I suppose. But
probably. Still people buying it, but not knowing. It's the whole meme of like the guy with the pickaxe getting close to diamond but then giving up and walking away. It's literally just NACS connector.
An adapter should be a nice little band-aid for those people. But anywho, I appreciate you making the time, Mike. Thanks for joining us. I think we covered a bulk of the most interesting stuff. Surprisingly little Cybertruck talk today. But hopefully we have more updates on that in the not too distant future.
That'd be nice.
Alrighty. Take care. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.